Are you all ready for a twin flame perspective shift? I think it's about time. Hey everybody, I'm Dev.
I'm Nicole.
And we are life strategists, we're spiritual teachers, and we are twin flame mentors. We wanted to really talk about being able to switch your perspective a little around the twin flame journey. A lot of you guys have asked us, why are we going through this? It's so painful. I'm so uncomfortable. What's the point? So we wanted to share with you 3 points around the twin flame journey that can really help to shift the perspective and deepen your sense of self-empowerment in this process.
So first off, Dev, this is a spiritual journey.
Yes, it is.
If we lived by ego alone, Dove and I, we would be in a lot of trouble. In the beginning of our relationship, we were all up into ego and all up in the identity that we thought we were until we met each other and our dynamic started to unravel the shadow and the ego self and the parts of self that we created to survive and to deal with the wounds and the trauma that we had, the defensiveness, my aggressiveness, like shutting the heart down, running, chasing, all of those things came crashing down. Yeah. And what was left, right? This is why this is a spiritual journey, because we're understanding that we are these beautiful souls in this human form, having this multi-dimensional experience and needing to understand what we are and what we are not.
Yes.
And so in the face of Dove's love, everything came crashing down. And we couldn't get through it without the spirit, without God, without that connection. There had to be something more. And in that relationship and in that communication and in that self-searching and going inward, and we both went inward, and then we both, came together and did work together. We had this spiritual experience and found an answer to not just our journey, but the answer to all of it. Understanding that we're creators, understanding that we were creating our reality, understanding that we are these beautiful beings that are connected to each other, right? And so, yummy.
Yes, what a great catalyst to be able to think about it like this, right? As, okay, this is going to be the reflection of dropping out and shaking off these parts of my ego that are really not serving me, right? Ego being, if you want to think about it like this, old outdated cassette player, right? Playing the old stories, not even related to you. It's not personal. It doesn't care about you. It's right. And being able to unplug from that version and that story because you're being shown this light that's coming at you, this light that reminds you of source, this light that reminds you of your divinity and the collective divinity, right? That you might call God, spirit, universe, right? And so you're really in this space. And this is a pivotal thing that we're being asked to do on this earth at this time anyway. We're having this collective planetary ego death, right? This shift away from that space and this deep calling to come back to self. And what I always used to say early on in our work, and some of you guys might be new to us, we've been doing this a long time. And, it really bears repeating to some of the earlier messages, which is, hey, remember this, the twin flame journey is really letting you have this acceleration course to your growth and to your evolution and to doing the things that the planet is needing, right? So there is the planet is needing this anchoring of unconditional love. It's needing this anchoring in of disconnecting from the ego, being able to be in the more fully expressed, fully immersed version of self, calling that higher self into your being and being able to express that on the planet and contribute to that, spectrum of planetary growth consciousness, collective growth consciousness. And so you're having that facilitated through this big why, right? So we really only go deep into places when we have a really big reason to. And I remember when, being initially connected to Nicole, there were some things that I faced and even later in our relationship that I would have never wanted to face, but for this incredible love that I had and this why to be connected with this, this being. And then the why became to be here to serve with all of you guys and, so on and so forth. And so, that love that you have for this counterpart is also going to facilitate that fire and that why, that reasoning for you to have the courage to do that evolutionary work and to disconnect from that ego space.
Come on. And it's the ego that plugs us into the matrix. That's how we're controlled, and that's how. So I just want you to, put that in the mind of like when we're in that space, we're easily controlled, we're easily reactive. And so The next piece, and this is scary for many of you, is this is a journey of vulnerability and honesty.
Yes.
Right? And when I say honesty, sometimes we don't even know how we feel. So it's hard for us to be honest with ourselves. And then we were talking about the divine masculine earlier, about how it's been hard for them to be vulnerable. Even in my own home, growing up as a woman, my father was very much, like, shake it off, get up, don't cry, like, don't be upset. And it's like, so vulnerability is a child's game. Whew. When you are a child, you are vulnerable.
Yes.
Right? This is why we have to do inner child work. I'm going to explain. You're your most vulnerable when you're a child, which means that when the trauma hits, when you're that vulnerable,
right,
it hurts that much. And so as adults, when we're being asked to be vulnerable with a partner, this is that space where the ego is working and going, I'm not telling you all the things, right? I might say some things I aren't even told the truth, make myself look good. I might give you what you want to hear because I want you to stay, and so it's hard to have that vulnerability and be honest when those wounds are there. And so that's why we do this internal work. So as adults, vulnerability builds trust in a relationship. Right? If I can get vulnerable with this beautiful woman and she holds me in that, it builds trust. But if I don't get vulnerable, it's very hard to build that trust and to have that deep intimacy that I know you all want to have, because all of us want to be seen, right? Into me, I see. It's like, I want to be seen, right? And so Dove and I have worked so hard on being able to be vulnerable with each other. And, we got different bonding styles, Dove and I. She's an anxious bonder and I'm a disorganized kind of, avoidant bonder. And so it was very tricky because, if I ran, she'd chase, and then I'd run even harder. And so to be able, though, to start to build communication and to start to trust each other, bit by bit, giving more and allowing the person to truly listen, and you truly listening to your partner.
Yes.
And repeating back what they said, and not only repeating back what they said, but putting yourself in their shoes and understanding them more deeply. This is the magic in the twin flame union and part of the journey.
Yeah. And, I want to speak to, like, I know how much courage, right, that it takes to be vulnerable. But this really leads into the third perspective shift and point that we want to talk about, which is that this journey is about unconditional love. And I want to talk and clarify what we mean by that a little bit more, but really being able to think it's like courage is the journey through the heart, right? It's the heart-led person. It's the person that is moving from that space. And so you see how they're connected and how it's critical that we do surrender, right? First, that ego process, understand we're disconnecting from that ego, which allows us to be in the heart center, and being in the heart center and being led by the heart center and in that courage energy, right? And courage, for some of you guys that need to know this, I remember people say to me all the time, like, I'm not courageous because I'm afraid. But the thing is that courage is actually the act of walking anyway, despite having the fear. It's not about walking where the fear is absent, right? And so allowing yourself to understand that, like, it doesn't mean life gets not scary. This journey is not scary. Your self-development is not scary. But it's being able to be that heart-centered, that heart-led, which brings you back to your deepest essence and is part of the perspective of the journey, which is that this is about unconditional love. Well, unconditional love for me is very much being fully connected to the divine unconditional, right? Being in that divine, that heavenly union, because when we're in that heavenly union, we're in the flow of that unconditional energy. Think about it like a frequency and less like an action, right? And unconditional love doesn't mean you let people come into your house and, step on your boundaries and get hurt and excuse, abuse and excuse, negative behavior. It doesn't mean you don't have boundaries, and it certainly doesn't mean that you don't extend unconditional love to yourself, because that's really part of the journey. But for this purposes, right, I really want you to think about it as a flow of energy. How do I then tap into that thing that is really moving and flowing through me so that I'm not attaching and being limited to the fear, and then I'm not attaching and being limited to my earlier trauma or my more recent trauma, which is really that thing, right? The ego is the one that is trying to protect us, keep us from having that vulnerability. So when people say, like, yes, I've been vulnerable in the past and people have hurt me, of course, right? Life is not the avoidance of pain. It cannot be. Life is painful. People will disappoint. You will have heartbreak. You know, I love that in Sanskrit, they talk about the heart chakra as the unbreakable, and that the more that it breaks, the more it breaks open. The more that it breaks, the more light comes into it, right?
Come on.
This grief point, this break point is connection to source, connection to that unconditional that we're talking about. And that's why we talked about this video being a perspective shift, because we might be holding a very strong perspective or judgment around what something means, where we can shift out of it. Really, the truth is that it may have, and often does have, a very alternate meaning, one that for whatever reason our ego doesn't want to accept, but has a more profound understanding, right?
Absolutely.
If you're sitting there and you're noticing this is hitting, right? This is resonating for me at a profound level. I'm feeling this somewhere in my gut. Somehow I know this information even if I haven't heard it, right? You're having a connected knowing. And as I say this, a lot of energy is moving for a lot of you guys.
Absolutely.
And things are really unlocking for you, right? So there's activation, right? Consciousness activation, energy activation that's occurring for you in this because of the truth and the codes that this information has. And you know it, right? And it will activate within you. Once we gather information and perspective that is in alignment, it's really not something we can unknow or undo.
Come on.
Right? So you guys are there. So I really hope that this just allows you to see how much the perspective can shift in a journey. And that also allows us to move from a place of disempowerment to a place of power in just a few minutes, a place of, feeling like things are happening to us, to seeing how we can navigate dance and what can happen within our own system and own life to make this journey really powerful for you, which is always our job in all that we do, is for you to remember that you are limitless, incredibly powerful, and it is not about you becoming something different or better. It is about you unraveling, unknowing the things that are getting in the way of that deepest remembrance that you have.
Absolutely.
So if this has been helpful, please make sure that you follow, like, and subscribe us, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and you stay connected to us in all areas. Give it a like, give it a share if you can, a comment about how this has shifted your perspective. We would love to know what has shifted for you. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.